All right. So one of the things that I do remember about the speech that you gave was you talked about, I think it was the three C's. What did that tell us more about what the three C's were, if I have that right, from your presentation?
Absolutely. So the three C's I like to talk about are compassion, curiosity, and courage. And for me, compassion gets into empathy, psychological safety. Curiosity is active listening, really trying to get to know people and their stories, remembering everyone has their own story. And courage is that piece that if you feel safe, being courageously vulnerable. And that's something that for me, I've always been very open about my mental health condition, but that's something that even if you just let people know a little bit about yourself, it's very helpful.
Which to me, I think that's really hard to do, right? It's if so I'll give you a perfect example, and this wasn't the plan. I mean, here you stand, you look at me, I got this nice little gash on my forehead. You can see it. People come up and they have empathy for that, or they have curiosity, and they want to ask about it. Up into just the other day, 2 days ago, I was walking out of our conference that we had in Peoria, and I was on my phone and I was walking, and a lady who I did not know goes, "Oh, is that how you got the bump on your head?" Right? And she was being friendly and nice about it, wasn't insulting at all, but because I wasn't paying attention. So she could see it, and it makes sense. Often with mental illness, we don't see it. And we don't know about it. So it's so silent, and all of us, and I remember you asked us to show a sign of hands. Who in the room knows someone, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, or even themselves that struggle with some form of mental illness? And every single person in the room raised their hand. And that right there starts to bring the walls down. But again, these are not illnesses that we can see. So, how do we help bring this into the workplace and make it more okay or accommodating in the workplace? And I can tell you, then I want to get into some conversation with you, Bert, and how do we accommodate, and what does the law expect us to do? But first, Lanique, if you can kick us off with how do we make it more okay to talk about in the workplace?
Talking about it is tricky. I've been doing this since around 2010, 2008, and I've seen a lot of great changes. We are talking about it more, but there is still a lot of stigma and just discrimination. I like to use that word because really, even when it comes to legal, that's what it comes down to. A lot of people aren't disclosing and getting the accommodations they need because of stigma and discrimination. But to change that, one of the things that we can do is just start normalizing it. Be courageous in just talking about it as something that's normal. You talked about people in the audience raising their hand. I do that every time I speak, and there's never an audience that I've had where everyone didn't raise their hand. Everyone is touched by this, whether it's themselves or a family member, someone they care about. And I think it's just so important to just start normalizing the conversation. Going beyond that, businesses can have campaigns that are lasting mental health campaigns. We've seen in the research that, people like perks, but that's not really where the big work happens. If you actually bake it into your culture, you think about how you can create this space that mental health is normalized.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.